In this vlog, I'm going to recommend some films that are great to watch whilst in isolation. These films can be streamed on Netflix, but I will recommend some other TV shows and films that can be streamed on other platforms such as Sky, Amazon, and that. Right, well, let's get started. The first thing I'd like to recommend on Netflix are documentaries, specifically documentary series like The Pharmacist, Don't That With Cats, which I've watched and love, and of course their most famous so far, Tiger King, the documentary about tigers for the first half. No, but seriously, this show is wonderful, and so are the others. I don't want to get too much into the plot, just they're insane, all of them, so please go and have a look. Netflix are really good with their documentary features, such as Icarus and American Factory, which have both won the Oscar for Best Documentary Feature. And then, of course, Bikram Yoga and Fire Festival, the greatest festival that never happened. These are very underrated, and I honestly recommend both of these documentaries. Another group of documentaries that aren't actually by Netflix, but I truly recommend, is Blackfish, my favourite documentary of all time, about the scandal of a killer whale killing its trainer, and how the fault really lies within SeaWorld and not the animal itself. And then, of course, Apollo 11. This documentary is superb. It's so underrated. I can't express this enough. Another thing that I'd like to throw in there is a documentary short that's on Netflix that was really high praised at the Sundance Film Festival, and that's Ghost of Sugarland. It's basically about this group of friends who hide their identities with iconic masks from Mario, Kylo Ren mask, and all sorts. And they talk about their friend who's become involved in a terrorist group and is possibly in trouble himself. So it's insane. It's about 21 minutes. I just go and recommend it. It's a nice watch. Well, not a nice watch, but you know what I mean. Anyway, next thing. Now, where do I begin with Netflix? Of course, Netflix are really good with their TV series, such as The Stranger, Stranger Things, I'm Not Okay With This, and Lock and Key. These are all very good shows that I recommend. They're just binge-worthy, basically. They're binge-worthy shows. Another series I'd like to recommend is Dark Crystal: Age of Resistance. I'm hoping a season 2 for this show will be greenlit soon, but if not, then shame. TV shows in general is another thing. Breaking Bad is on there, and Better Call Saul. And of course, Netflix got involved with Gilligan's work, and they made El Camino. Other TV shows are on there, such as Doctor Who. I'm not even joking, I started watching just a couple of episodes from the old Doctor Who days. I miss them. Next thing. And now we come to the cherry on top. Netflix have an amazing archive of feature films, ranging from genre to their fan base and obviously your own personal taste. Such films as The Irishman by Martin Scorsese, Marriage Story by Noah Baumbach, and of course Marriage Story, also by Noah Baumbach. We also have Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler's greatest performance possibly. Either that or Punch Drunk Love. Of course you have The Two Popes. And then of course we come to my favourite Netflix film, Roma. It's the film where I thought, yeah, Netflix are on the right track with how they're producing, how they're helping, and how they're creating their own work. It's wonderful, and I honestly cannot stress enough to watch it if you are into the film medium, and if you don't mind black and white cinematography or anything like that. It's just a lovely film to watch, so please give it a go. Another two I'd like to recommend actually is I Lost My Body and I Am Mother. Where do I begin with romance? Well, if you're in the mood for comedy, there's How Harry Met Sally, Groundhog Day. If you're in the mood for some animation, there's Garden of Words, beautiful. If you're in the mood for drama, there's Phantom Thread, La La Land. Heck, an ultimate classic, West Side Story. Romance is a really good place to look if you're in the mood for it, obviously, but yeah. Where do I begin with horror? They haven't produced any good works themselves, I'm afraid. Well, no. I mean, Bird Box and The Silence is basically a rip-off of A Quiet Place. Oh, A Quiet Place. Go and watch that. That's on Netflix. If I had to recommend some, Sinister's on there, the entire of the Insidious trilogy, the entirety of the Final Destination trilogy, Misery, It Chapter 1. Red Dragon is on there, which is a prequel to Silence of the Lambs, which is really good. If you're in the mood for comedy, there's Cabin in the Woods and Beetlejuice. And if you're in the mood for body horror, there's of course Videodrome by David Cronenberg, who also did The Fly. Sadly, The Fly isn't on there. They should get that on there. Now we move on to my favourite category, sci-fi and fantasy. Netflix are really good with this one. In the sci-fi section, we have Ex Machina, Annihilation, The Martian. Then we also have Life Force by Tobe Hooper, who directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre. District 9 is another good sci-fi film to watch, really recommend it. In the fantasy area, you have the entirety of the Lord of the Rings trilogy and the first Hobbit movie, thank God. You also have comedy fantasies like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. Love it. I'd also like to recommend a found footage film in this list, just because there are some people who are fans of found footage films, and this one I'm about to recommend is actually one of the good ones, Troll Hunters. It sounds ridiculous, but it's actually really well done. For any adults out there, any parents, I'd like to recommend some good films to watch with your children that you can possibly enjoy as well. And the most simple answer for this is the works of Studio Ghibli. Studio Ghibli is a Japanese animation company that have produced some amazing works throughout the world. I specifically recommend the works of Hayao Miyazaki, who produced such films as Princess Mononoke, Ponyo, Howl's Moving Castle, Arrietty, and of course their Oscar winner, Spirited Away. But of course, Studio Ghibli have made other good films apart from Hayao Miyazaki's work, such as Princess Kaguya and Grave of the Fireflies. Now, Grave of the Fireflies, do not watch that with your children. It is incredibly depressing, but I do recommend you watch it. Whilst we're on the topic of sad animated films, I'd actually like to recommend one of my most favourite animated films ever, A Silent Voice. The last thing I recommend in Netflix is actually very obscure. I recommend that you try and watch Bollywood films. I wish I was joking. A while back, I myself used to be a Bollywood hater. But then I watched a film, and that film changed me for good. Slumdog Millionaire, no it wasn't, sadly it wasn't. So the kind of Bollywood films that I recommend that are on Netflix are such as Three Idiots, Bahubali, Lagan, which is a wonderful tale about how the Indians won back their land and resources from the British by a game of cricket. It's mad, but I love it. It's just, I can't stress enough how much I love it. I'm not saying you should go and watch Bollywood films, but if you're willing to test your taste in films, then I do, recommend trying and go down that path. It's a fun path. There is another series that I'd like to recommend that isn't on Netflix yet, and I don't know when it will be, and that is the mini-series Chernobyl. Chernobyl is a fantastic series, possibly my favourite mini-series ever. It's well filmed, well directed, well written, well acted, well performed, well structured. Everything is just perfect about the show. It's just great. I really recommend you watch it, please.